statistical, mathematical fact
never has been down.
has broken every single record. There is no asset that has come close.
It's the only thing in the industry that was not touched, that was not hacked, and it never fails doing what it promised in 2009. It's never
What's
failed.
the best performing asset the world has ever seen? And you'll find out that it's Bitcoin.
Hello, Bitcoiners, traders. Got traders here too. Followers, supporters, haters, all of you, welcome. Welcome to another live space with Oliver Velez, of course. My name is Oliver Velez, and I am going to talk about the hottest topic on the planet right now, at least as far as Bitcoin Twitter or X.com Twitter is concerned. Anyway, we're going to talk about today the redemption scenario that's going on with Grayscale, or better known by its symbol as GBTC. And I recently put out a post on X.com here that got a lot of engagement because I believe that a lot of people disagreed with my assessment that Grayscale would likely retain their king position their position as the king of Bitcoin's spot ETFs, and probably indefinitely so. And so I got quite a bit of pushback on that. And I love when these posts do that because it tells me that you're not asleep, number one, that you're paying attention, number two, and that what I'm saying is hitting somewhat of a nerve. This is not the time to be overly comfortable. And to be quite honest with you, I enjoy hitting nerves a bit with some of my posts and some of my content. And whenever a post of mine does accomplish this, it gives me an indication that it's something that we should delve into, lift the curtain on, and get a better understanding of. So that's what we're going to do here. I'm going to try not to keep you long. I know it's Friday, but I want to thank each and every one of you for showing up. For the benefit of those who are unfamiliar with my live talks here, I don't pass the mic, so your request for the mic is going to be for naught, I'm afraid. I find that my style of delivering the limited information that I have and the limited knowledge that I have is best done in monologue form. Passing the mic and fumbling around with your mic and my mic and the noise in your background and so forth and so on, I think interrupts my flow. And so for the foreseeable future, I will continue to do these live talks in monologue form. In addition to that, it is most appropriate for me to do that because this content does wind up on my Bitcoin podcast, which I strongly encourage that you follow if you find anything that I have to say of interest. That podcast is called Bitcoin Unleashed. That's right, Bitcoin Unleashed. You can find that on Spotify. You can find it on the Fountain app. You can find it on YouTube as well. You pick the poison of your choice, but I really like the Fountain app because the Fountain app allows me to take like an hour-long conversation or an hour-and-a-half-long conversation and to also create smaller, more digestible clips from that full content episode. And so you have the full episode, you have the bite-sized parts of it that break it up into these more digestible portions. And I really like that feature. In addition to that, Fountain app does give you the ability to earn free Satoshis for simply listening to me and many others. So I would strongly suggest that you try to consume that content if your heart so desires on the Fountain app. All right. So guys, let's delve into this. I want to appreciate all of you who are taking the time out of your schedules to join into this live. And while my last few episodes, I haven't been able to take any of your questions, I'm hoping to do that here today. So I'm going to really focus on being relatively short with my topics here so that I can spend some time answering any questions that you might have at the end of my little monologue here. Now, the first thing I want to tell you is that I strongly do maintain my stance that despite the fact that Grayscale, the largest ETF by assets under management by far, is going to retain their king position in the spot Bitcoin ETF. Guys, I am telling you, we're not talking about the same universe here. We're talking about we're talking about a fund that had close to 650,000 BTC compared to all others that started out with zero. We're talking about a fund that started all the way back, I believe in 2013, I want to say. Don't quote me on that year, but I believe that's it or thereabouts. They have a decade-long advance run. They are in another galaxy as far as the amount of Bitcoin they started with and the assets under management. It is going to be extraordinarily difficult, if not damn right impossible, to catch them no matter what level of redemptions come in the next week or so. And here is why. The first thing that I want to tell you is that we are witnessing history here, guys. We're witnessing history in front of our eyes, and I believe this is a history that will be written about and talked about and studied for decades, and it should be something exciting to you. I am literally riveted. I am sitting on the edge of my seat. I'm trying to keep my finger on the pulse of things, and I hope that's your attitude. And on top of that, we're getting Bitcoin on sale at a discount while having all of this fun and excitement watching what's going on. Guys, this has never happened before in history. We are breaking records by the day. This is not something to pass over gradually or in a cursory type way. This is truly exciting history. And we all know that Bitcoin does not have a marketing department. But my God, it doesn't need a marketing department. This is being watched. It's being monitored from all four corners of planet Earth. There is no country, there is no government, there's no economy or financial division anywhere on planet Earth that's not really focused on this right now. And it's truly amazing. All right. So these are truly exciting times. Now, look. The first thing I'm going to tell you off the bat that I am not by any stretch of the imagination a Grayscale fan. In fact, the entire organization puts a very bad taste in my mouth. I'm going to put that out there right up front. All the way from the CEO or the founder of everything, from Silbert, what's his full name? Barry Silbert. Bad taste in my mouth. His parent company, DCG Digital Currency Group, bad taste in my mouth. All of his divisions, Genesis, all of his shit coining, everything, all the way down to Grayscale itself, all of it has always put a bad taste in my mouth. I am not a fan, which is why I said in the title of this, I actually hope that I'm wrong. I just don't see how I'm going to be wrong. But I would bless the day that someone else overtook Grayscale's king position. I would bless the day and have actually stated this on this outlet right here on X.com that I hope they go under. That's how much of a distaste I have for the entire organization. And I'm sorry if that offends anyone who's involved with them and actually loves them. Everyone's has a right to their own feelings and their own opinion, and that is mine. So I want to put that out there up front. I don't like them, period. And that's me. But at the same time, I have to be honest with myself. And when I look at the situation, I just don't see how Grayscale is going to lose their position. And despite the fact that I don't like the organization and what they stand for and what they've done in the past, what I can see clearly, as far as I'm concerned, is that Bitcoin saved their asses. Surprise, always Bitcoin coming to the rescue. If it weren't for Bitcoin, their asses wouldn't have been saved. Now, here's why I believe, guys, that Grayscale, the BlackRocks, as powerful as they are, and the Fidelities as big as they are, they have very small chance of catching GBTC. The first thing, as I began talking about, GBTC has a decade. They have a decade of experience and a head start. That is a very, very long time, guys. You don't close a decade of success. We're not talking about a decade of floundering around. This is a decade of success. Grayscale, as a result of that, they started off with an ungodly amount of Bitcoin, close to 650,000. I know it's coming down by the hour. I get it. But they started off with that. And they have one of the most coveted golden gooses in the entire financial world. I want you to understand this. You need to understand how extraordinarily profitable Grayscale, that part of the business, is. They literally just custody Bitcoin, sit on their asses, and collect 2% on an asset that is mathematically guaranteed to rise every 4 years of its life forever. And they receive their payment in Bitcoin. There is no real other financial unit or division of anybody's company on planet Earth that has it as sweet as Grayscale does. And I'm here to tell you that no one with a golden goose like that, no one with a revenue stream like that, no one with a sit on your ass and just collect riches for the rest of your existence is in a position to make mistakes, to lose it all. I'm telling you, as much as they leave a distaste in my mouth, they're not that dumb. In fact, I'm going to talk about how brilliant they are. You see, I believe that Grayscale knows the numbers. I believe that this has been thought out thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of times. They understood that everyone was going to try to undercut their 2% fee. Grayscale kept their clients in a 2% prison, and it was nothing anyone wanted to do about it because it was the only game in town if you wanted, as an institution, as an organization, as a company, and in many cases, as an individual up for a while, to gain massive exposure to Bitcoin. It was the only game in town. And so people had to swallow a fee that is outrageous. They imprisoned their clients for a decade and they wouldn't budge. Bad taste, bad taste. But they understand now that the people who have been involved in GBTC for a while, people who had joined from the beginning, people who over the last 5 years were involved or what have you, these people have massive gains from Bitcoin's meteoric rise over this period, which makes them susceptible to a huge, instantaneous, immediate capital gains hit to the bottom line. We're not talking about pennies when it comes to some of these bigger players. And that tax hit is very meaningful. And so let's call the hit 20% more or less. And so I believe that Grayscale did the analysis, knows the numbers. They know how many people, how much Bitcoin is susceptible to a big tax hit. Out of the 650,000 Bitcoin, I think they have that pretty much locked down, close to the absolute Bitcoin. To the Bitcoin, how many Bitcoin is exposed to a big, massive tax hit? Now let's take the other side. They understand that there are many players as well that are in a tax deferred scenario with their GBT shares. They understand that there are people that don't have organizations and companies and institutions and individuals that don't have this tax consequence. And so they understand that those people are likely to leave, but never 100%. Never does 100% of the people leave. So I believe they even know how much Bitcoin, what percentage of Bitcoin that they have of that initial 650,000 or whatever the number was, is susceptible to tax deferred redemptions. I think they've done the analysis not once, not twice, but thousands. Guys, this is the most profitable golden goose in the entire industry. You don't make moves without knowing these numbers. You don't make rash decisions and give up a golden goose of this size, this magnitude, without having run this back and forth, up and down, shaken over twice, 3 times, 1,000,000 times. And so I believe that they have done their work, and they have done their work to even know how far down from the original 2% they have to go to prevent a landslide. And so I believe they didn't have to go down much at all. In fact, I believe that if Grayscale maintained their 2%, that they still would likely get the same results. But I believe, in my opinion, that move from dropping from a 2% annualized fee to a 1.5% annualized fee was just to show a move of faith. But I don't even think that was necessary. Now, I want you to understand that while 1.5% is extraordinarily high compared to the lowest fee, which I think is 0.20%, 0.2%, 20 basis points. But I will tell you this, that's a lot more palatable than taking an instantaneous 20+% hit to the bottom line, to massive amounts of wealth that have accumulated over the years. And so if you think about it, I believe that I believe they understand that the vast majority is just not going to make that choice. And they know the percentage of Bitcoin that's going to leave the doors because they don't have a tax consequence. So I want you to think about the choice that most of the Bitcoin has. The choice that they have is, I take an immediate 20+% hit now and redivert to something that saves me, I don't know, let's call it, that saves me 1.10%, let's say 1.10%, 1.1% annualized. Because remember, no one's going to save 1.5%, which is their fee. They're going to go to someone with a fee as well. So they're not escaping a fee by redemptions and moving into another ETF. There's a net effect there. There's cost to the move. There's cost to the liquidation. There's cost to the reestablishing the situation if you're talking about big money and an institution and whatever the case is. And so there's cost associated with that. So it's not saving 1.5%. It's like saving 1% or 1.15% or something like that. And so when you're faced with this choice, take an immediate 20% now or suffer a 1.5% annualized fee when I was already suffering a 2% fee, a higher 2% fee all these years anyway, I think the majority of the Bitcoin remains. I think that what other people are also missing is that there were periods where GBTC was bringing into its coffers Bitcoin at an even more exponential rate than the redemptions that you see now. That it was a wonder to witness and see. That this same thing on the reverse side of Bitcoin being gobbled up and coming in to GBTC when there was a premium, that was the premium trade, institutions were dumping Bitcoin into GBTC like it was the frickin' end of the world. And so the redemptions that you see today coming out of Bitcoin, while it might seem really steep, and it is, there was a period where the Bitcoin going in greatly outstripped what you see coming out today. And a lot of people, I think, are unaware of that. And the third thing is that I just think that most people are emotional. In my business, most people, especially if they're not deeply rooted in my industry, my business, they're emotional. I think that many of you are just emotional. You're trapped in the moment. And you think that just because you see 9,000 Bitcoin, 9,000 is nothing in the grand scheme of things here. Nothing compared to the numbers I saw going in during the glory years, and nothing in comparison to massively what they have. Now, I believe, and I could be wrong, and as I mentioned earlier, guys, I hope I'm wrong. I believe that you're going to see these redemptions rapidly dry up in the next week or two, rapidly, like come to almost a screeching halt. And that's when we will know, if I'm right, that we're now up against that wall where the redemptions from this point are people that are contemplating, calculating as to whether or not they want to take the hit and move away anyway, because maybe the taste in their mouth is like the taste in my mouth. I'm not quite sure I'd be one of them that takes this hit. I'm not quite sure I would do that. I'd admittedly be on the fence, but I'm not quite sure I'd land on that side of the fence where I'd take a 20% immediate hit versus I've got time to think about it. It's a 1.5% fee annualized versus a 20% hit now. Just think about that. 20% hit now, or I've got time to think about it. It's 1.5% for an entire year. I don't think most people are going to make that choice. All right. And so it was expected by me that you'd get this accelerated, immediate redemption, this flurry of redemptions for the first couple of weeks that would then subside the following couple of weeks quite rapidly and basically come down to a trickle. If you put a gun to my head to come up with a certain amount, I'd say by the end of this month, GBT redemptions are going to be at extraordinarily low levels to normal to low levels, if not practically non-existent. That is my take, and I'm sticking to it. I do want you to understand that it is my opinion that that the industry is after GBTC. We know this from the adversarial stance by the SEC. I think the organization gives everyone bad taste in their mouths. I think that BlackRock in particular would like nothing more than be the king of this space because they're the king of the ETF world anyway. I think that the SEC's part of the SEC's adamant position on cash create was partially in part designed to hit GBTC, because if there were in kind, no one would need to take a tax hit. And that, well, actually, now that I think of it, I can't really speak confidently on that. I'm not really that well versed on that side. It's my impression that there are a lot of people that would like that to come down. And so what I will say is that despite all of this desire, the 10-year advanced start that GBTC has, the heights with which they started with in their AUM and the sheer number of Bitcoin that they had in custody is just too far gone. And the last thing, and I believe that they've done the numbers to determine that the initial redemptions will not bring their assets under management or the number of Bitcoin down anywhere close to where the others can become. Now, remember, this is an outright war in race amongst a variety of big organizations. And so if we were talking about just BlackRock and GBTC, that is a real race. If you were to put GBTC against BlackRock and no one else is involved, then I'd say there's a better chance. But when you splinter the limited supply amongst 8 other players who are competing against you from being number one against GBTC, I think it's almost like the crab effect, right? So BlackRock is being held back by all the others gobbling up BTC, and all of the redemptions from GBTC are not just going to BlackRock, it's going to the others too. And so if you just had 2 competing, there would be a fighting chance. But the others that are all competing against GBTC, they're really fighting each other. And that will also, in my opinion, be a force that will keep the others from getting close, in my opinion. All right. Am I ready for your questions here? Is there another point I wanted to make here? Let me see here. I think that's it. And so, guys, I truly hope that I'm wrong on this. I don't see many questions at all. So I truly hope that I'm wrong on this, but I just don't think so. I just can't see it. No matter what angle I look at it from, I can't see them losing their position. And let me end on this before I delve into your questions. Let me end on this. I want you to understand how rapidly the tops are being formed in Bitcoin. You'll understand what I mean by that in just a second. The tops are rapidly declining. What I mean by that is, who's the top individual? What individual in the world holds the most Bitcoin today? Satoshi Nakamoto, 1.1 million Bitcoin. No individual ever in the history of mankind will ever own 1.1 million Bitcoin, ever. That record is set in stone, in code forever. I know people say, well, Oliver, forever is a long time. You're damn skippy, it's a long time. And that's what I'm saying. Forever. Never, 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 never. So that top is set. I believe that 650,000 Bitcoin is likely to be the top for any ETF. I'm sorry, I just think it's the top. You've got too many players joining in and fighting for the supply. Remember, I told you if there's 2 players, maybe, but 8, 9, 10 players and more to come, it's not going to happen, in my opinion. That top is set by Grayscale. You'll get them evening out around 200 or whatever, maybe 300, but I just don't see it. I don't see it. I actually hope I'm wrong, but I think that top is set by Grayscale. I think MicroStrategy is setting the top for a single corporate organization. I think he's setting that top now. You see, it's not that companies like an Apple or a Google can't take him out. They won't. And it's going to become increasingly harder and harder for someone to dedicate their business the way MicroStrategy's dedicated their business to acquiring Bitcoin. As the value rises, as the supply becomes more limited, and as the issuance gets cut in half every 4 years, these things become exponentially more difficult to accomplish. There is a huge benefit to being first at something when it comes to Bitcoin because it is finite, because its supply is so limited, because its supply is becoming more limited, and because its issuance rate gets cut in half every 4 years, and its value is mathematically designed to rise every 4 years of its existence forever. And so it becomes exponentially more expensive to join in every 4 years, exponentially so. And so I believe that Michael Saylor's MicroStrategy, Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy's strategy, Bitcoin strategy, will be studied for decades to come. And I think no one's going to catch them. No one, no organization. I think MicroStrategy put the top in. Could I be wrong? Absolutely. I'm just giving you my view, my vision. It's up to you whether you buy into it or not. It's all about sharing. I'm just sharing you my view. So I think Satoshi put the top in as far as an individual holding. I think GBTC put the top in now as far as an ETF. I don't think an ETF will ever hold that much more. Again, I believe that MicroStrategy right now is continues to put MicroStrategy the top for a corporate, individual corporate or organization. And I think the US is likely to set the top for any government holding forever. Forever. And I think that these tops get lower and lower. I want you to think about the top of the numbers. The first top was 1.1 million, but look at how the second top is so dramatically lower, from 1.1 million to 650,000 Bitcoin. That's the second top. Now go down to the next top, which I think is going to be around 200 something thousand Bitcoin. And then I think the tops that come after that will go into the next digit. Maybe it's a 100,000 range, and then maybe it's 50,000 Bitcoin range, and then maybe it's 20,000 Bitcoin range, and then maybe it's 10,000, then maybe it's 1,000, then maybe it's 500, and then maybe it's frickin' 1. Do I feel or believe in my heart that there's a day where it will be extraordinarily rare to find an individual that owns 1 Bitcoin? I do believe that. Now, you can call me Moon Boy all you want to. I believe that's where it's going. The only question is timing, which obviously with something like that is very difficult to do. But I will tell you this, there was a time, and people say, well, Oliver, come on, man, you're too bullish. I hear this all the time. You're nothing but a moon buyer. I hear this all the time. I'm a moon boy. I'm too bullish. Dude, don't you understand? I'm just using history. I'm using facts from the past. I am not pulling this out of my ass. I'm not pulling this out of some dream I had last night. I study markets. And the only thing you can study when you study markets is to study the past. I have studied Bitcoin's past, and I'm here to tell you that there was a time where having 1,000 Bitcoin was nothing, that people didn't respect it, and that having 1,000 Bitcoin now is extraordinarily rare. I can show you forum posts back in the day where people said, I'm only getting 600, I'm only getting 600 Bitcoin a day. I'm behind 600 a day. What? There were times when people wouldn't show up to a site, Bitcoin Fountain, to receive 50 free Bitcoin. Find how many people in your life do you actually know that has 50 Bitcoin and they used to be given out for free just for showing up to a site. This is factual history. It was nothing for someone to pay 10,000 Bitcoin for two pizzas. Who on earth, how many people on earth today have 10,000 Bitcoin? And so the same thing that happened with 10,000 Bitcoin being normal for people to have 10,000 or more, the dude bought a pizza, excuse the dogs, guys, a pizza with 10,000, which was not even out of the norm. People were buying pairs of socks for 5,000 Bitcoin. Anybody who would accept Bitcoin, they would do it. 2,000 Bitcoin here, 4,000 Bitcoin here for trinkets, for coffee. Who today can you point to as an individual that has 10,000 Bitcoin when it was regular back in the day? Nobody. Who can you point to in your life that has 1,000 Bitcoin today when that was that was like having a cup of water back in the day? Nobody. Who in your life today do you know owns 100 Bitcoin? Nobody. Who in your life do you know that owns any Bitcoin? Almost everybody. So I'm here to tell you that the same thing that happened with 10,000 being thrown around like it was nothing, then 1,000 being thrown around like it was nothing, then 100, then 50. Now no one throws one Bitcoin around like it's nothing. I am telling you the same thing is going to happen at this level. One Bitcoin is out of reach for 99% of all human beings on Earth. Well, let's say 98% of all human beings on Earth can't get one today, and they were throwing 10,000s, thousands around at a time, and people wouldn't show up to get 50 free ones. And this is not the end of that. There's going to become a time where a half a Bitcoin is extraordinarily rare. 1/10 of a Bitcoin is extraordinarily rare. There will come a time where the world deals with the dust of Bitcoin. Do you know what the dust of Bitcoin is today? Satoshis. Satoshis will become the dominant unit in the future. That's my two sats, and I'm sticking to it. The same way, if you told someone back in 2010 or 11 that you had one Bitcoin, which was a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of 1 penny, no one would care. And today, one Bitcoin places you in the top 2% of all human beings on Earth. This is not going to change. It's only 15 years old. Guys, the airplane is still being adopted today. The airline industry came into existence in the early 1900s, 1903 in the United States. If correct me if I'm wrong. It's 120 years old, and still today, 4 out of 5 people have never stepped on a plane in their lives on planet Earth. It's 120 years and it still has growth. It's 120 years and still it has explosive growth in front of it. 4 out of every 5 human beings have never stepped foot on a plane. Its future is still bright. And we're talking about a 15-year-old asset that went from thousands being accessible and disrespected to now one being extraordinarily rare. You can't find anyone in your life with one, or very few. What do you think is going to happen when Bitcoin's over 100,000? How rare will holding one Bitcoin be? 500,000, 1 million and beyond. We're going to go to the dust level. I can't even get you guys today to show up and download a free app, Fountain app, and receive free Satoshis. I ask you, in fact, beg you every single episode, download the app. Even if you don't like me, you can listen to anybody you want. You get free Satoshis. Just like Gavin and Andreessen couldn't get you to show up to a website to get 50 free Bitcoin. I can't get you to receive 50 free Satoshis. Now people would give their left arm and their right leg for 50 free Bitcoin. Do you see the pattern? And in the future, people are going to look back and say, you had the ability to get free Satoshis and you didn't? How stupid are you? This is where I think we're going, guys. This is where I think we're going. So these tops that we experienced already, Satoshi Nakamoto, 1.1 million, that's gone forever. I think 650,000 for a fund is gone forever. I think 200 and some odd thousand will be the top for any corporation forever. I'm not going to be able to do this forever. The window's closing every single hour of the day. It's going away. And I think these tops keep going down to 100 to 50,000 to 20,000 to 10,000 to 1,000 to 500 to 10 to 1 to Satoshis. 30 years out will be a very different picture from today. We're 15 years out. 15 more years? My God. 50 more years? My God. All right, guys. That's my vision. That's my view. And I'm sticking to it. So let me see what you guys have to say here. Let me see if I can take some questions. Cosmo, I really appreciate that. My new favorite Bitcoin speaker. I truly appreciate that. All right. Those, I know that most people don't take the time out to express anything positive. What I've always learned throughout all of my businesses and so forth and so on, my industry, whatever, everything I've ever done, that there's a 17-to-1 ratio between good comments and bad comments. So what that means is that for every one person that is willing to step up to the plate and say something positive, there are 17 people who will say something negative. And so the negativity in our world gets amplified and appears to be much larger than it is because the negative people are more vocal. The negative people are more parasitic in their behavior and their approach. And so every time someone says something positive, I make it a point to really, truly appreciate that, because that's rare. It's rare for someone to do that. And I appreciate that from you, Cosmo. All right. Let's see. OV Muhammad is asking, OV, do you foresee any issues with GBTC holding the leadership position on the BTC space? That's actually a great question, Mohammed. Uh, Guys, I don't think if you followed me for even a small period of time, you know how adamant I am with a Bitcoin only stance. I am not a fan of the organization that Grayscale belongs to. I'm not a fan of their business practices. I'm not a fan of their shitcoining. I'm not a fan of their leadership. I'm not a fan of the decisions that they've made. I'm just not a fan at all. And if I had my wish, they'd be gone. Now, the question is, do I think that there is a problem? As far as other parts of that business, I think if I had to pick the better part of their business, it is the Grayscale part. The Grayscale part focuses exclusively on Bitcoin, and lo and behold, it's the creme de la creme of their whole organization. It's the cleanest operation of their whole operation. It's the purest of their whole operation. And it's the part of the operation that is saving their entire existence. Bitcoin only. I don't, especially now, I don't see, with that being said, especially now, I don't see a major problem with them retaining their position as king, especially now. Now, what do I mean by especially now? Because they are regulated in a very different way today, to be honest with you. Now, we're talking about regulated markets here. We're talking about having to do things in a more strict and more transparent way than they were. Now, they were publicly traded, I get that, but this is stricter. It's more transparent. It's more open. And so with that being said, I have to honestly say, I don't see a major problem. The only thing that I feel sorry about is all the people who are trapped into that 1.5%, and there's an option that gives them something dramatically better. And so while I do consider it a shrewd, smart business move on their part, it's just like a bad taste. I can't escape the bad taste. I just can't. And so, again, with that being said, a problem? No, not for Bitcoin, not for us. I don't see it as a problem. But my preference is for them to be taken out. But like I said, I don't see that happening right now. All right. Colin is asking, how do you reconcile the fact that the future will appreciate Satoshis, but for now, less than 1 million is kind of dust, and you risk having a blocked UTXO unless price goes to the stratosphere and miners have a lower Satoshi fees? Colin, I'm going to ask you to kind of repost that because it's a bit convoluted to me, and I don't really understand what you're really trying to get at here. Just try to reframe that question for me. It kind of seems like touching on too many points at the same time. All right. Dilavar Singh is saying, Oliver, hey, Oliver, I love your bullishness. Thank you. I have a question. Can you see any gradually then suddenly type of moment when fiat dies and hyper Bitcoinization happens within 2 years? I actually don't. And for all of my bullishness on Bitcoin, I'm not one of these Bitcoin maximalists, for lack of a better term. Some people like that term, some people don't. I don't care. As long as people know what it means. But for all of my bullishness, I am not one of these Bitcoin maxis that is calling for the demise of the US dollar overnight next year or whatever. What I will tell you is that all fiat currencies die. And most of the world today has been indoctrinated to believe that they don't. But these are the people who have not taken the time out to basically study financial history, monetary history. And never in the history of the world hasn't a money died. A money that is run, governed by, operated, controlled by a government, not died. You can Google this right now and ask what's the average lifespan of a currency, and you'll get something like 27 to 35 years. All right. So every currency has a lifespan. Everything has a lifespan. Every fiat currency has a lifespan. That lifespan is not terribly long. All right. So you don't see any Roman denarius floating around. You don't see any Italian lira floating around today. You don't see any German marks floating around. Where did they go? They're all dead. The cemetery for currencies is fuller, has more dead corpses in the cemetery than there are currencies alive today. Do you understand? Currencies die, and they die all the time. All the time. So if you were to do that quick search, you'd find that the average lifespan is 27 to 35 years. Now, that is distinct and different from a world reserve currency. That is a separate category. Now, when you search what's the average lifespan of a world reserve currency, you're going to come up with about 150 years. Now, that's an average, which means that some world currencies will go longer, 300, 350 years. Some world currencies collapse 70 years, 80 years. But it's interesting to note where the US dollar as the world reserve currency is in that statistical number of 150 years. It's really, really fascinating. Now, with all of that being said, let me go to what my specific opinionated vision is. I believe that first you get the weaker currencies in the world collapsing into the dollar. I think the dollar is the global Pac-Man on the globe today. I think the dollar eats up the Argentinian peso, the Venezuelan bolivar, the Mexican peso, the Turkish lira, the dollar is eating the entire world. Do you understand? The dollar is like the English language. The English language is the apex language throughout the globe. It is gobbling up all the other languages literally one by one. People don't realize this, but the English language is like a T-Rex that's gobbling up every other little language into itself. All language is collapsing into English. All right? You can go anywhere in the world and you'll find someone who speaks English, but you may not find someone all over the world that speaks any other language. It may be difficult, right? So just like the English language is the apex language on the globe, the dollar is the apex fiat currency all over the globe. It is literally gobbling up and eating all the other currencies. But that apex fiat currency is also currently collapsing into Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is the ultimate black hole, but it's like a domino effect. The weaker ones collapse into the dollar as the dollar itself is collapsing into Bitcoin. And so the better position is to work with the US dollar and Bitcoin. Those are the two closest. Those are your two apex predators. And I am not one of these fiat maxis that feel that you should have $0. I'm sorry. I can't go there. I can't go there. And so I think you operate between the two apex predators. Now, I do believe in having the majority of what you have in the ultimate apex predator, but living today in a dollarized world and eschewing the other apex predator in the fiat world, I just think is unrealistic right now. I'm sorry. That's going to piss off a lot of you gung-ho Bitcoiners, but I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That's just the way that's the way I've lived. And maybe it's my background coming up in a fiat world and dominating that world in a big way in my own right. But the point is that I think the combination of the two of the two predators, and that may be a bad choice of words, but the two dominant things, I think using the two dominant things in an intelligent way is the best. BlackRock came out with a study that basically an internal report that suggested that the best allocation with Bitcoin was 85% Bitcoin and 15% cash, or 85% Bitcoin. And if you wanted a total investment portfolio, 85% Bitcoin, 60% stocks. And then the 15% would be divided by 60% stocks and 40% bonds. But if you did not want the stocks or the bonds and you just wanted Bitcoin, 85% Bitcoin and 15% cash. I can rock with that. I can go as far as 90 plus percent Bitcoin and the rest cash. But to say that we live in a world where cash is useless today, I think you're just ahead of you're very far ahead of your skis on that position right now. And I don't think it's necessary right now. So what I typically tell my Bitcoiners is, listen, don't put your family at risk just because you have laser eyes on your profile picture on X.com. Come on, guys. Don't make your family suffer. Don't make your kids suffer just because you're a Bitcoin maxi. All right. So you should have what you need in the immediate now and the immediate future. You should have that in cash so that life doesn't force you to sell the most valuable, the scarcest asset on planet Earth that represents freedom. Because when you go too far with that, you're gonna sell. And I'm going to tell you what I tell my people all the time. I'm going to tell them, you want to protect yourself against the first sale, because once you break that seal, if you have never sold, if all you've done is accumulated and you break that sell seal, you do it the first time, you're never the same. You're never the same psychologically. You never kind of get back to that purity again. And it makes selling the next time easier. And the odds suggest that you'll do it. And then the next time will become easier and easier. And you're back to being a freaking fiat maximalist trading for short-term gains with an item that represents generational freedom and generational wealth. So I'm constantly on top of them, protecting them against don't do it. If you feel this powerful urge that you need to sell, you probably have done it too big. You should do it to the point where you know, no matter what happens in life, this is my freedom, this is my future, this is my family's future, this is the future of generations not born yet. I'm not touching it. And wherever that level is, and hopefully wherever you decide it is, it grows as your conviction grows, so does that level grow. But you should try to do this in a fashion where you have the amount that you know you can comfortably never touch no matter what it does. And I think that holding on is more important than amount right now. And that's another thing I know that will upset some other Bitcoin maxis as well. I consider myself a Bitcoin maxi, but there are these different layers. I think you can have too much, guys. You can have so much that you're miserable, that you're checking the price 150 times an hour, that you can't sit down and have a meal with your family, that you can't be nice or pleasant with people because you've got this price nagging at you all the time. You don't want to be bothered. You're just a freaking miserable human being because you overextended yourself with this thing, and it's not at the equal level of your conviction, because if your conviction was higher, the fiat price means absolutely nothing. That you don't respect. When your conviction gets to a certain level, you don't respect what the weaker item says about the stronger item. You don't respect what the inferior's opinion of the superior is. The dollar, the price you see is the US dollar's opinion of Bitcoin. Why would you accept the US dollar's view or opinion of what is superior to it? So when your conviction gets to that point, you don't care what the US dollar amount is. But if you haven't gotten to that point, you should find out where that point is where you can live a decent life until you get your conviction up. Anyway, that's my view, guys, and I'm sticking with it. All right. What else here? Derek says, I downloaded the Fountain app. Good, thank you. BTC only says, I think BlackRock's BTC holdings will flip MSTR soon, probably 1 to 2 years. That's possible, but I even think that's unlikely, but it's possible. Now, I want you to understand, Bitcoin only and the rest of you, that I do create these categories for these tops, right? So I said that the top, I believe, for a fund has already been set by Grayscale and will probably not be superseded. Whatever top that they put in before all of this, whether 60, because I don't know the exact number, I'm just going to round and use 650,000 Bitcoin. I think that's top is set. That is for a fund, not a company. So we're talking about two different categories. The same way Satoshi is an individual. All right. It's possible that a fund supersedes the company level. But I'm saying, as far as companies holding Bitcoin on their balance sheet, I think MicroStrategy is setting that top right now. As far as a fund holding Bitcoin, I think Grayscale set the top on that already, 650,000. So please understand the different categories that I'm laying out here. All right. Side Duck says, has a little image here. Why is it going down? This is not down. Guys, come on. Really? This is not down. This is resting. I'm floored by this softness that I see in people. My God, we're talking about an 80 vol asset that's down, what, 10, 15%, 20%, 80, 15, 80, 20. That's a freaking healthy rest. Do you understand this? You need your asset to cool off. You need your runner to have a pit stop every now and then. You don't see a NASCAR race without them going in the pit stop. Do you? No. You need this. You can't have it overheat to the point where the collapse becomes so overdue that the drop is more than the historical drop. You want a bull run to be interrupted by shakeouts. This is what keeps the bull run healthy. If you don't have those shakeouts, that's what a real bubble is. You want a bubble? You go straight up without a single pause. And this thing will get so top heavy that it will create a crash and a drop like Bitcoin has never seen in its entire existence. We don't want that. We want there to be a release valve every now and then. We want the system to get jolted every now and then to shake off the free riders and the tourists. We need these breaks. You need the 20 to 30% pullbacks along the way. Otherwise, it stops being healthy. These are not collapses. They are not real damaging pullbacks. They do nothing but heal and prepare and give Bitcoin a period of rest, a power nap, if you will, to be recharged to go on its next leg. And I know I'm talking to a lot of people that don't have experience with financial markets, but that still doesn't stop me from getting frustrated with you guys sometimes. It's just so basic to me. You know, you want this thing. The worst thing is for a beeline straight up. I'm telling you, you don't want that. We need the pit stops. We need the pullbacks. We need the rest. We need the naps. We need the periods that create a little bit of doubt. We need Bitcoin climbing a wall of doubt, not removing all the doubt, which it will do by going straight up without a pause, because it gets very dangerous when all the doubt is gone in a market. That's when you get tulips. We don't want tulips here. This is not anything to be concerned with. My God, it's a gift. All right, let me see what else I got here. Yes, Joe Calarsi, I appreciate you being here, Joe. Joe says, yeah, Bitcoin, Grayscale doesn't focus exclusively on Bitcoin. That's right. That's right. I'm glad you reminded me of that. Now you've even deepened the bad taste I have in my mouth, Joe. As I mentioned, I just don't like the shit coining. I think that the damage that they've done, the distraction they've caused in the industry. You guys know my stance on this. I just don't like it. I just don't like it. And that's right. Grayscale has this trust and that trust, but it is currently Bitcoin that's saving their asses. That is for sure. Mike says, I'm getting my free sats. Awesome. All right, guys. So listen, I want to thank you all for joining in live. I know that, I never not have one of these things, right, and not take a moment to say thank you for taking the most valuable commodity you have. There is something more valuable than Bitcoin in life, and that is your time. You can't ever get the time that you spent here with me today back, ever. And that is amazing to me. It's flabbergasted. I am floored by your generosity to give that to me. I made a promise almost 3 decades ago that anytime I was given the ability to speak in front of an audience, whether it's 10,000 people or 10 people, every single time I'm given the opportunity to speak in a mic or on a live online session like this, I would do my best to deliver something of value and hopefully something that you'd be able to use in your life forever. And I hope I've done that here today. And if I haven't, I promise you, every single time I do one of these talks, I will focus on getting better and better and better. Thank you very much. You guys know what to do. All right, be safe out there. Go to work, guys. Go to work. Stack harder. This is nothing more than a gift. All this little tiny dip is doing is making Bitcoin more scarce, more rare, more valuable than it ever has been. Ciao for now, guys. Boom. My name is Oliver Velez, and I am your 13%er Bitcoiner. Be safe out there, and until next time. Boom!